You know, the one thing you can admit, they do have absolutely pristine aesthetics when it comes to the Syndicate here. Always love this. Yeah, sure, let's just make nothing but legendary and relic tier parts. I'm sure that'll be oh so well received by all these new players into the game. Ha ha! Either way, welcome back, everybody. Today we're talking about this lovely little season that's going to be coming up here, replacing the next step here in the next 14 days. So we have two little news posts here talking about new parts and new movements coming into the game. So let's talk about them real quickly. So first things first, start on the first post. Let's talk about the Satori Legendary Light Cabin. And this bad boy is basically supposed to be the upgraded version of the Janabi Cabin. So if you don't know what the Janabi Cabin is, if you come over here and take a look at it, it's basically a drifting-oriented build. So this thing gives you 20% extra damage when you're drifting only with wheels. Can't really do it with legs or anything fancy like that. But you can see, very light, very fast, and has a decent amount of energy, so really tiered more towards lighter, faster builds, and usually at a lower power score because the mass limit is kind of rough when you're dealing with very high power scores. But great if you're able to actually effectively do a lot of drifting, you just get a lot of free damage. It's not a very high quality cabin, nor is it a very well used cabin, but it is something at least. But the slight difference with this one is that the actual perk itself will increase the longer you drift. So it encourages you not to drift in short spurts, but rather very, 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 very long spurts. I'm not really sure how well it's going to work on closed tight maps, but hey, for very open maps, this could be very interesting. Plus, the perk itself doesn't immediately evaporate as soon as you stop drifting. It actually accumulates and then just stays there and sticks around. So even if you can't necessarily build up your drifting capacity, being able to do like donuts or something and then just go out there and fire a bunch, this might be an option for that. I'm just imagining people though taking this, going invisible, doing a bunch of donuts, coming out, and then just firing a bunch. Beyond that, we have the Oyabun Legendary Engine, which is supposed to be the upgraded version of the Hot Rod engine. So if you know what the Hot Rod engine is, it is basically the classic zero energy, very fast engine that also makes it so you can reverse with your wheeled builds a little bit nicer, because if you don't know, wheeled builds, you can't go in reverse at full speed. You only get like 10 or so % of the true attritional speed. But this one has essentially going to be the upgraded version, so you're going to get more mass limit, maybe more power, and maybe some other variable stats. Maybe like you get extra speed as well. But the big thing with this one is that it also gives you the extra power if you encounter an obstacle. I'm not sure if this is only going to be limited to players, environmental objects, or maybe some projectiles you find on the ground. But when this happens, you essentially just get additional power to go in reverse, which I might find to be a bit interesting because you don't have to use this exclusively with wheeled builds. You could use it with tracked builds or leg builds or any other builds that don't have the penalty when going in reverse. Because if you don't know, if you just press T, it reverses your camera for you. So as long as you just like change your keybinds or change how you drive your car, you could theoretically just go around in reverse. And if you hit something, then congratulations, now all of a sudden you're just moving faster in the direction you were already going. So this could be very useful for melee builds. If you just put your melee build in reverse, you could just theoretically push into somebody and then push even faster. So I wonder if like for track builds you do that, and then all of a sudden you hit somebody and they could just immediately mega punch them into the stratosphere. That'll be interesting to see how that actually interacts with things like this. It also is interesting to see just what the size is of this thing, because if it's a little bit too large, I can see that coming into a lot more conflicts than the Hot Rod engine, especially considering the Hot Rod is already quite chunky, but we'll see. Then beyond that, we have some new structural parts here, which actually do look pretty cool. So it looks like we have the bumper of the brand new, I already forgot the cabin's name, Satori cabin, and then we have it what appears to be the hood accessory as well, which is kind of nice. The only downside about a lot of the Syndicate parts here is that they tend not to be very wide accommodating. They're meant for more lighter, narrower builds. So when you're trying to apply it on a bigger build, especially like chunky cars like this, they look very off. So I wonder how this will look in the end. And then, ooh, they're also alluding to, what is this? A plasma weapon. Hopefully they don't talk about it in the very next update here. But yes, in the next update here, we're talking about the nice, lovely Fukibari Legendary Crossbow, which they actually did show off in this unlisted video if you were on Discord, kind of showing off its little glamour shots here, its little extra triple bolt setup, and also just it in action. So you can kind of see what it does just based off this alone. So you can see we fired 3 crossbow bolts, and they stick to the car itself. But on top of that, you can see that the cabin of this one, the BWC cabin, is actually heating up as well. So it kind of is a combination of 3 different things. We kind of have the effects of the Aura, the Phoenix, and the Varun crossbow. And if you don't know what any of those parts are, essentially the Phoenix shoots a small crossbow bolt that actually sticks to your car and explodes. But the Varun also has the ability to shoot 3 bolts after charging up as well. And also, charging up means also you get additional damage and speed as well. So I wonder if that actually is going to apply to the Fukibari crossbow as well. So essentially, you get 3 sticky bolts that then heat up parts. So this is actually very ideal for build to have either an exposed cabin or very big chunky parts like legs, tracks, or maybe even to a certain degree bumpers, because bumpers themselves can also have a lot of HP. So heating those up could be quite nice. But I'm also curious as to whether or not its impulse is going to be suitably high as well, because I wonder if it's going to be similar to the spike, where it's good at pushing over things. But we'll see. Interesting part here. Crossbows tend not to perform terribly well in games unless you're talking about the spike, but the spike really is only good because it's very novel in the sense that it can push over things super easily. So I wonder how this is going to kind of fare into that. Beyond that, we have the nice first epic part, actually. The first one actually listed entirely is the Wabaki epic light wheels. And these are essentially light wheels that when you're around a bunch of other enemies, it actually increases the power to your cabin. So when you're in the thick of things, I'm assuming you're going to have a very short radius on this actual part here, you then can effectively move faster and push more. But the thing is, light wheels in general don't really have a lot of power consumption, and I assume since it's a light wheel, it's only going to be on lighter builds, so I feel like power is not necessarily going to be an issue. And on top of that, a wheel that also changes your driving characteristics mid-combat may not be desirable, because it just may make you run into environmental objects or other players unintentionally, because you're like, oh no, now I have to like adjust on the fly. And also it's just kind of hard because we have things like the Hermit that increase their damage based on how much you're driving. And then we also have the buggy parts that decrease the speed requirement for things like engines and radiators. But then secondarily too, this thing has a weird perk in that if you actually contact something while driving with these epic wheels, the perk itself is just completely gone and disabled for a few seconds, I'm guessing. So for melee builds, this is entirely out of the question because it won't even work that much. And then the perk itself may encourage actual crashing because of its weird perk. And then on top of that, you have an engine that incentivizes you to, like, crash, kind of? So, seems like a weird combination of things, but I guess, if anything, it's just going to make you very fast, and it's maybe good for, like, racing-esque brawls, if I had to guess. Next, we have the actual Nemesis Relic of Plasma Emitter. This is the thing they've been alluding to for 2 posts now. And it's a funny little part here because it's Relic. So, for the most part, only, like, 5 people, 15 people in the entire Crossout game are going to have access to this. This is essentially supposed to be a kind of long-tier plasma-type shot, so I'm guessing it's going to be very similar to something like the Quasar, Assembler, and the Pulsar. And the perk of this thing is that after charging it up for a little bit, you just shoot a fast-aiming projectile that deals a significant amount of damage. But the thing is that when you don't shoot for a little bit, the perk actually accumulates, and that reduces the time you need to actually charge it up to full strength. So this is going to be more of a weapon that ideally what you do is that you don't participate in combat for a little bit, get your perk up, quickly charge up, sneak in, fire shot, and then leave, and kind of do that on repeat. So sneaky builds with camouflage, this might be best for you. But then also, I'm curious as to how many of these you're going to be able to slap onto a cabinet. Considering it doesn't have a big fat base that is usually associated with very high power score or high energy during drawing weapons, I wonder if this thing means you can have like 2 or 3 of them on your cabinet without too much issue. And I wonder if that's the case then, I wonder if that means if you say fire one of the plasma emitters and then you leave the other one to cool down, does that mean if you alternate, would you actually get that perk at all, or is that kind of shared between them? It'll be interesting to see how that actually functions out. But it'll be interesting to see what this is like, because Quasars and Pulsars are already really excellent at disabling weapons and really taking out weapons super easily. So what if this thing is just going to be like, hey, I look at you and your cannon's gone, or something like that. So I'm curious to see what the balance is going to be like on this part. And then secondarily, got some new structural parts as well. Kind of going with more of a strangely aquatic looking theme here, honestly. Because the like sloped ends and the bulbous looking eyes either give me like fish or bug aesthetics. But it's kind of cool. Do love the inclusion of these little kind of, I'm not sure what it's called, tube lights of some sort. Thinking of it, I know it's full of a noble gas. Neon lights, that's what it is. Okay. My brain is fried right now. But beyond that, you can also see they're talking about a brand new PvP map coming as well in the next update. So I'm always a big fan of that. I'm curious as to what it's going to be like, if it's going to be more of another one of those Love Level of the City maps. Because honestly, the Syndicate maps are honestly some of the more beautiful looking ones out there. But that is essentially everything here. So what do y'all think about the lovely Syndicate update so far? Are y'all excited with the current news? Are you looking forward to things? And also, how do you feel about everything kind of being legendary or relic tier right now? Because for the most part, I kind of have an issue with a larger percentage of parts becoming the legendary and relic tier at this point, because I feel like for newcomers into this game, that just means more and more of the stuff is becoming further and further grind requiring. So it just makes these things less accessible. I honestly wish they had a bit more emphasis on providing like blue tier or special tier parts, because those sections of the game right now are very anemic and haven't been improved in ages. So they need to come out here and release that. I know it's not big and sexy when it comes to an update, you know, talking about the new rare tier or special tier part. But for new players, that actually is a huge quality of life improvement, and especially considering that we've had a struggle with recruiting new players into this game, that would be a huge benefit. But that's just kind of my thoughts. Let me know what you think down below. And other than that, feel free to follow me on the platform is your favorite, on that YouTube and that Twitch. Beyond that, we also have Blue Sky and Discord down below if you want to get notified whenever we go live, as well as just join the community. But on that, guys, I want to thank you all again, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.